Moral injury. Wow. This is something that we all know that we have, but there's a term for it now. And although it's not in the DSM-6 yet, it's kind of up for consideration. So I'm going to read, okay, because I have this up here, exactly what it is. I'm going to read it just verbatim. All right, so my eyes are moving over here. So it is the lasting psychological, behavioral, and spiritual distress caused by performing, witnessing, or failing to prevent acts that violate deeply held moral beliefs. Okay, deeply held moral beliefs. Now the DSM-5 for some of the, or 6, now it's the 6, that you don't know, that is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. Okay, so I want to talk about this today because moral injury, oh my goodness. So many times people will tell me that they have PTSD. I had PTSD, I was cheated on. I had PTSD, I was lied to. And PTSD is a trauma. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder. This was a term that was coined, I believe, and I think around the time of the Vietnam War. And it was defined or called different things. Shell-shocked, battle fatigue. And it was basically traumatic responses that we saw, not we, you and me, but that was observed in those individuals who came back from war. Nightmares, physiological symptoms, anger, domestic violence, all kinds of things that came out of this particular scenario that they lived under for a long time. So PTSD can be broken down in different kinds of PTSD, continuums of PTSD. I'm not a mental health professional, so I can't get into the nitty-gritty, but I can do some overview and then talk a little bit about moral injury so you can understand it. So typically, when somebody has PTSD, there can be a scenario where it's a one-off, right? A car crash, a hurricane, an earthquake, a bridge falls down, a one-off event, and a person or persons then have the psychological responses, emotional responses, physical responses to that trauma. Our body takes in trauma. Doesn't matter what we do with our brain. We can try and talk ourselves out of it a lot, but our body does remember it. These are one-off scenarios. So it happens, people have the symptoms. Many times they go to a therapist, or they work the symptoms out in any way that they can to get to the other side and live a healthy, happy life after that. Are they changed from it? Of course, trauma always changes us. Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse. Sometimes people have trauma and they say, you know, now that I've had this happen, I appreciate every day a little bit more. Or now that this has happened to me, I've slowed down my pace, or I don't spend as much time at the office. So people try to make, some good out of a bad situation. And again, that's a one-off. Also, sometimes in those scenarios, if it's something like an earthquake, a tornado, a hurricane, a bridge fell down, you have community involvement. It didn't just happen to one person. You all have PTSD together. And so you can support each other. It's not, and you have community and you don't feel so alone. The other type of PTSD is what we call complex PTSD, sometimes known as CPTSD. And that is when it's not a one-off scenario. For example, somebody lives in a concentration camp for 2 or 3 years. It's trauma every single day. They're on pins and needles wondering about their life. Are they going to be murdered? What is this going to be the next day? So it's this constant, and they're in the constant flight or flight. And so they're driven by cortisol and adrenaline. So they have this complex series of PTSD. We also see this with people in battle, people at war, soldiers who have been deployed and they're in a battle environment for a long time. And they come back after that and they have a myriad of symptoms. And this was very long going. Now, in the two that I've mentioned, regular PTSD and regular PTSD, the one-off PTSD or the complex PTSD, very often, not all the time, but very often, this is something that was done to you. And it's not intimate. An earthquake's an earthquake. It wasn't pointed at you. Bridge that fell down and the community, a bunch of cars plunged into the river, that just was a happenstance. horrible, horrible, and everybody got traumatized, but it wasn't a personal event. What happens with moral injury, it creates a PTSD, but it is almost always something that goes after your moral belief. So this is what happens with these high conflict divorces. Because you were married to, or are still married to, the person who was closest to you, your best friend, your lover, your partner, you had your name on the house or rental agreement with each other, names on checking accounts together, you had children together. I mean, you enmeshed your DNA and created human beings. And now that person who was supposed to be your best friend, the person you laid in the bed with every night, put your head on the pillow next to them, the person whose hand you reach out to when you have a bad dream, the person you call at work when you get a promotion or you get fired, they're your go-to person. They are your safe person. And then they suddenly are not. And it's not like they just come to you and say, honey, I fell out of love, or we've grown apart. That feels pretty terrible. But it's not such an attack on your moral convictions. It's when this person cheats on you once or twice or thrice or who knows how many times, is having an ongoing affair behind your back and you know it, or you found out about it, or they've been deceptive about money. They're hoarding money. You don't know where it is. They've been cruel to you. There's been domestic violence, physical and emotional. And you start to wonder, it's really getting me here. It's really getting me at what's at the moral foundation of this relationship. A relationship that's supposed to be rooted in love and commitment and honor and integrity and legal. And yet all of that goes out the window, and it really does hurt you here. There's no way that it can't. And is that PTSD? Absolutely. Is it ongoing? Absolutely. And anybody who's been in that situation knows that that's how it feels. And now we have this word for it. We have this phrase for it. So it's not just PTSD. It really hurts at the core of who we are, what our belief system is. And what's even worse with moral injury than any other kind of PTSD, it's how do you trust again? And we hear this all the time. I know I hear it from clients. People get divorced and they're like, you know what? I'm never dating again. And they eventually do, hopefully, but some don't. And it depends on where that moral injury is. And you know what's worse? When you have it with a marriage and then you meet somebody else and they're just as bad. Okay? And you go, wait, what did I do? You didn't do anything. Okay? People behave the way they behave, and it has no bearing on you. When people say, I have a bad picker, it seems like you may miss some signs. But the bottom line is, if somebody's going to be a bad actor, they're a bad actor. And you'll hear me say bad actor a lot because I don't want to say narcissist, and I don't want to say anything that, labels somebody. But bad actors pretty much falls into this category. And so this is where your injury lies. And knowing that it exists, knowing that you're not imagining things, is really powerful. Now, what's interesting is over the past couple of weeks, as I learned more about moral injury, I talked to two people that I know. One who was in Afghanistan for a couple months, okay? Boots on the ground. The person also had a bad divorce and said, hands down, the divorce was worse. What? Really? You were in combat in Afghanistan, a place where a lot of people don't even want to land in the airport, okay? And yet, the divorce was worse. And the comment was, I knew I was at war. I was with other soldiers. We were together in this. Yes, we saw death. Yes, we saw destruction. We were together in this. And do we have PTSD from it? Absolutely. But the spouse cheating, the spouse's deception that went on for such a long time really stung. And the comment was, I didn't trust anybody there. So close to my heart. Yeah, I had people fighting with me, but I also knew that if it came down between me and them, it would be, they had to take me out, they would. But the comment was, but this was my partner, the person I should have been safe with, and I wasn't. So that's really powerful. And that's what makes moral injury so hard. I also spoke to another person who had been through a myriad of horrible health situations, one after another, after another, after another, and just awful. And then also had a bad divorce. And again said, all those things, being in a wheelchair for 6 months and then getting my legs back and being in a walker, nothing compared to the bad divorce. So it is that moral injury that makes it so painful. Now, if somebody's going through a normal, healthy divorce, which is when two people grow apart or they realize they're not on the same page any longer and they want to let go of the marriage, there's some pain and grieving, and it's more of a grief process. There's not as much moral injury as when you're in these high conflict situations where you're abandoned or you've been lied to or you've been cheated on. That really cuts into everything that you morally, that holds close. So this is something that I think is really powerful for you to hear. If you're living through this, know that you're not crazy, you're not imagining it. It really is a thing. It's a real thing. And it is PTSD. All right, now, do me a little favor, and I'll do one for you. Click in the subscribe button, and also take a few moments, go into my website. I have something amazing called Before It Gets Ugly. It's 7-day prep. If you're thinking about leaving, you haven't left yet, it gives you all the ways to get out and to protect yourself. You're not being deceptive. Just have a little plan if you need it, because it's better to have it instead of needing it, okay? And go into my Substack. A lot of free information. I'm here for you. Always can chat. Just let me know. All right, jump into the next video.